So I'd move down, get 2 first-round picks out of this proposition, and you feed your meat and potatoes. You feed your meat and potatoes on the offensive line or linebacker with the first pick, and then you get something sexy in the back end or at wide receiver.
Hold on.
What?
How did you just end up with the Patriots having 2 first-round picks?
Well, they traded back.
So you traded back into the first round?
No, they moved down from 21.
Yes.
They moved down from 21. Yep. They got 23 from whoever's picking 23.
Okay.
And then
another pick, not a first-round pick, though. You don't
right,
get 2
yeah. And then they jump back up. It was jumping around. I'm glad you proofread me on that because there was a lot going on.
The math there was really confusing to me. Yeah, I got my Jimmy Johnson trade chart right here, Curran. That doesn't work. So clearly, our guy needed a little time off. He's off. I'm in. I'm your host for Quick Slants. Let's get to the show right now. Quick Slants. Welcome in. We have a phenomenal episode of Quick Slants for you tonight. Of course, I will be hosting Phil Perry. Welcome in. Tom Curran, we actually will hear from later in the show. Chris Sims will be joining us. Megan Ottolini, of course. It's loaded up, and we're getting you ready for the draft. Let's get to our game plan, though, first and foremost, and really nail this thing down. Feeling cornered? Yeah, plenty of cornerback talk. Is cornerback the biggest need for the Patriots? Again, Tommy Curran, he'll be back with us. Chris Sims is going to be talking with him about all things Patriots. We also heard from a Patriots corner, Malcolm Butler. He back. They still won't tell us why he was benched in the Super Bowl. And as always, we have our poll, comments from you, the fans, and a mega hot take. But first, it's time for my slant. I mentioned it. Tom Curran, he had to take a little time away, regroup, refocus. With the draft about a week away, it's the perfect time for us to refocus and regroup ourselves, collect ourselves, after wading through weeks of draft prep minutia and zero in on what matters most. I know where my mind goes. Not to the thoughts of maybe the Patriots adding an electric receiver or even a left tackle of the future. My mind goes to Buffalo, to January 15th, to the Colts and to Josh Allen, to the sound of snapping tables and a crowd rising as Allen scrambles, to the sight of stale beer and vomit, and Allen stapling passes to the chests of his teammates. If we're trying to home in on what continues to ail the Patriots as they enter the draft, even after adding Butler to play a real role in the secondary, it's their depth at corner. It's become one of the most expensive positions in the sport, with good reason. If the Patriots want to have the ability to get a stop the next time they see Allen, they're going to need to invest. And the same will hold true for when they see the new-look Dolphins in their complement of explosive playmakers. Here's what new Director of Player Personnel Matt Groh told me when I asked him about making a reactionary move in the draft, given what's gone on down in Miami this offseason.
You know, we got to play them twice. Those are 2 very, very meaningful games. We've got to have a way to be able to combat those 2 players, along with a lot of the other great players that they have and have been able to add. But there's multiple ways to doing that, not just through personnel, their scheme.
Personnel, scheme. Odds are both are going to need tweaks before the Patriots embark on the 2022 season and what they'll see in the AFC East. And while value will matter in the first round next week, maybe at that point it'll make more sense for the Patriots to grab that Mac Jones protector or pass catcher, depending on who slides. It's clear to me the Patriots should make corner a priority and early. Let's welcome in our buddy, Megan Ottolini. Do you think I'm crazy, Meg, that I think the Patriots need to invest, maybe not necessarily at pick number 21 overall, but first, second round? I think this has to be a very strong consideration for them.
I don't think you're crazy at all. I think you're right on the money. This is a critical position group for the Patriots to address because they really painted themselves into a corner.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I'm sorry. But seriously, I mean, you let your 2 star cornerbacks walk in the last 10 months, and you look at what you have now. Yes, you brought back the Super Bowl hero, Malcolm Butler, but that is one of many major question marks. It could be a great story, you know, a story of redemption with him and Bill Belichick. It definitely will be great talk radio fodder, but we just don't know what they have there. And so my question to you, is it crazy to think that the Patriots might actually trade up when looking at this draft and move up in it, because you listen to guys like Mel Kiper, guys like yourself, which is why I'm asking you. This draft, it appears, could really fall off. Things could get a little sketchy after those very top elite guys go in the first round.
You're right. There are really three guys at the very top. It's Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati, it's Derek Stingley from LSU, and it's Trent McDuffie from Washington. That's really the top tier of that position this year. And if those guys aren't available into the late teens, then you're talking about maybe going and grabbing a guy who, Megan, in all honesty, might be a second round kind of talent. So you're not crazy. I could see the Patriots potentially trading up. They did it for Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower back in 2012 in the same draft. So Bill Belichick has done this. He has this reputation of being a value guy, right? Trade back, add more picks, stockpile talent that way. But that's not always the case. If the right guy is there, they will go up to get him. So it'll be fascinating to see if that's what they end up doing. Let's go from the stands.
Yeah, Phil, you
I love this part of the show.
You're the poll master now. Do you want to read the poll or do you want me to read it?
You read it. You're better at this than me.
Today's poll results, which you put out there, fill in the blank, not including quarterback. Corner is the blank most important position on the field. Well, 31% said it's the third most. Also, 31% said second most.
A tie?
Most said, well, 23% said most, and 15% were fourth most.
I think the people who say 15%, that 15% to me is crazy. That's just me, though.
Well, here, Jake has something to teach us. He says, quarterback is actually the third most. The signal calling the MLB does makes them the quarterback in the defense, which is more important. And left tackle is more important because unless there's a southpaw playing QB, they're protecting the real most important player on the field. I gave him that voice. Because
it kind of sounded like one of those types of comments. Yeah, I understand the left tackle argument, but you got to be able to stop people through the air.
Campaign Poppy says, I'd say that in today's NFL, there's an argument that it's only like the 6th to 7th most important position. I know I might get killed for this, but if you look at the team succeeding right now, it tracks. Are you going to kill him for that, Phil?
I'm not going to kill you for it, Campaign Poppy, because what teams are doing now is playing a little bit more zone, maybe taking stress off of individual corners, so you're not crazy. But 6th or 7th, I mean, it is one of the most valuable positions in the game.
And you need one. All right, Jared says when you had Ty Law, you won. When you had Revis, you won again. Then came Gilmore, and more winning. Seems like a trend. Well, there was also another guy on the other side of the ball, so.
Yes, that matters too. Yeah, the guy who's actually throwing it and the guys who are catching it, the guys who are protecting the quarterbacks as well. It all matters. But if you want to stop these top-tier offenses, which is what everybody's trying to build right now, you need people who can lock down on the opposite side, especially on third down, Meg. Because even if the Patriots play more zone, they got to play man at some point. Third down, you have to have people who can match up.
Can you give us a glimpse of some of those people as you would like to see come to the Patriots?
Yes, I can. And we've got a tremendous list here for you. So Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley.
Look at
those
that
guys
lovely face.
Oh, God. I'm so happy to be talking about the draft. Clearly there. I am. I love the draft. It's my favorite time of year. Those two are going to be gone in all likelihood. Trent McDuffie, to me, is someone who might be from that top tier, who could get into the teens, and you might be trading up for. Versatile, tough, a good tackler, really everything the Patriots usually like, just not the prototype in terms of size. Now, Kaiir Elam, he is the prototype in terms of size, but he needs some things cleaned up in terms of his technique. Andrew Booth, he's dealing with injury. He didn't test this pre-draft process, so it's kind of hard to know where he stacks up athletically, but tough, great ball skills. And Kyler Gordon, that last name on the list to me, Meg, is really fascinating because athletically, he's everything they want. He might be the most explosive athlete at this position in this year's draft. Crazy three-cone time, crazy short shuttle time. That's usually what the Patriots like. If you can change direction really quickly, that usually helps in the secondary.
All right. Well, explosiveness speaks volumes to me because they need that all over the defense. So tell me really quick, who would you like?
I like Kyler Gordon. I like the idea of him, but maybe not at 21, Megan. If you can trade down and you can get into the late 20s, add a couple of picks in the middle rounds, and still get somebody to be a starting caliber corner for you, I think that would make a lot of sense.
Or trade down and get 2 picks.
Or trade down and get like 7 first-round picks, the way Tom was suggesting, right?
Right.
Isn't that how this works? Okay, coming up, we're going to hear from Tom, and he's going to be talking about that guy with Chris Sims. Stick around. You don't want to miss it. Milestone birthday for Bill Belichick over the weekend as he turned 70 Saturday. For more perspective on Bill and his legacy, Tom Curran caught up with Chris Sims to discuss that and much more on this Patriots roster.
So he's been a part of your life for 40 years.
in one way or another. And you remember him from the Giants years and winning Super Bowls.
Definitely.
I look now towards what's probably the autumn of his career.
Right.
Just turned 70 last week. What impact will his post-Brady period have on his legacy?
It's not going to really have any impact on me. I know that. And I don't, again, I don't think it really should, no matter what happens. And again, he built the greatest dynasty we've ever seen in the history of football. So that to me is like, okay, mic drop, you can leave whatever you want. But I know there's those people out there, and why you're asking that question, that people are going to go, well, was it Brady? Was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Was it Belichick? Well, it can be both. But, in this case, too, I'm one that goes, no, Belichick was first, and Brady could barely win the starting job at Michigan, and they played a certain style of football early on that didn't make Brady have to do all that, and he groomed the whole thing up. So that's where he's special to me. And then Brady, of course, through the experience, just got better and better, and, of course, he's the GOAT now, right? So I'm always going to be like, no, Belichick is the absolute man, the greatest coach in the history of American sports and the NFL in a period, and of course, like all this, where the sport was made to be equal. It's like everything was equal except for one thing, that the Patriots were in the Final Four every year. And they were the only team that could do that. So he's amazing that way. Legacy, post-legacy, I don't know what he has to do to appeal to the people who are on the fence with the Brady-Belichick thing. Does he have to make a deep run into the playoffs? Probably. Maybe get to the Super Bowl. I more or less look at it, and I think he's already on the way there, of just setting the team up for more years for success, whether he continues to go or he retires 2 or 3 years from now and hands it off to somebody else. To me, he's already turned the franchise around in a spot to where you go, they're pretty good across the roster. There are a lot of pieces there. There's depth, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Not to say they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to be in that conversation for, whoa, watch out for them. They're an AFC playoff contender for sure.
And that's where I think I wholly agree with you on everything except to that point, because I think 2022 is serious nut cutting time for this Patriots version. There's no Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
There is a lack of personnel really on the offensive line. J.C. Jackson and Steph Gilmore have left the defense. They're fumigating the linebacker room. All of those things have Belichick kind of walking out on a thin branch with Mac Jones in his second year as starter. Are you concerned at all as a quarterback about Mac Jones' development post-McDaniels with so much turnover just on the offensive line and on that offensive coaching staff?
No, to a degree, I am. I mean, it doesn't make me think differently of Mac Jones. I still think, he's going to be a hell of a football player, and he's the right guy for the New England Patriots. But, Josh McDaniels is special. You know that. You talk to enough people around the NFL. I mean, Josh, in my opinion, it's him and Shanahan and McVay and, Sean Payton, and it's Andy Reid. I mean, that to me is the holy grail of offensive minds in the NFL. It's about that right there. So, yes, that's not going to be an easy adjustment. And not the fact that, like, hey, this will still roll. This will still be a good offense. But it's the intricate details that Josh is so good at. Or, hey, we're going to run this play, but I was thinking, Wednesday night, I should put this check with it too. So now if they do run this one defense every now you have this check that protect you. And that's where Josh separates himself from the rest of the group. So, yeah, I do think it's going to be kind of a learning curve for the whole organization, making up for no Josh McDaniels. Offensive line, hey, it wasn't nearly as dominant last year as it was the year before, the COVID year. So it is a little concerning. And like you said, they've lost a few guys. I don't know where that goes. They're sitting at pick 21. There should be a good offensive lineman there if they need it. Definitely. Wide receiver, same thing there. Whether they want to go there at 21, they certainly can. Later in the draft, there's going to be good value. But I like what they've done too. I mean, I think Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar are very good. They're going to continue to get better in that offense. And then Devontae Parker, when healthy, is a legit number one receiver. He really is.
And that's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have they done enough around Mac? Because like you mentioned, the one interesting thing, Chris, is you look at it, you say, remember Belichick saying this to me, one of the greatest challenges of coaching Brady in the second decade of Brady's career was giving him something that he didn't know on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Sure.
Challenging him, being smarter than him. And even though Mac Jones is only in his second year, he seems so advanced. There will be points at which he's like, hey, are you guys giving me stuff that I didn't have? And Josh would, I'm sure, always do that. He's, a PhD to the 10th level.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be interesting. Have they got enough personnel around him? And if you don't think they do, who would be a good after first round wideout to go after?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of depth. I do think, though, I think that group, when you add in Jacoby Myers with Aguilar, Bourne, and then now you throw in Devontae Parker, and then the two tight ends to go along with it, I sit there and go, they're not desperate for anything. They're pretty good. And we know New England. I mean, New England's a little bit more of like, hey, we like guys that can do it all, so you can't pin one guy to one specific area of the offense, or this guy only runs this route. They're going to let their system do it for them for the most part. Parker's the one guy that I do look at that can be that, like, oh, wait, it's one-on-one. You can't cover him. Mac Jones is going to throw a strike. But I also hear you in the fact that I'd love to see them put a little more firepower or speed over there too. Just somebody that scares a defense. Now, you get down in the draft, there's a lot of guys here. I don't like Sky Moore. To me, is a guy that's like Wes Welker, Julian Edelman plus special football player. I don't think he'll be there by the second round. John Mechie, okay. Yeah. Guy from Alabama, I can see that being the cup of tea and a guy that New England looks at, certainly. I don't know if that'll be second round. That might be more the third round pick or somewhere in that range.
What do you like about him?
Well, he's really smart and he's a great route runner. And you could see just even watching on film that he understands football. So he's going to be able to comprehend the schematics in New England, all the different rules. And New England, of course, why? They are great at teaching route running. So if you have a natural ability to run routes and now they teach it with you, man, it makes them really good. It's why they haven't always had superstar receivers at the position. Their system's great and they know how to coach them. So they go, wait, we get them open with these guys. We don't always need Randy Moss. That's what's special about New England. But he would be one of those guys that I would say, is interesting towards the mid-rounds of the draft.
Great stuff there from Tom E. and Chris Sims. Let's talk a little bit more about this Patriots roster, how it's stacking up. And this guy in particular, Malcolm Butler, still don't know why he didn't play in that Eagles Super Bowl. We're talking about that and much more. And quick fire, it's coming up. Celtics host the Nets in Game 2 on Wednesday. Our coverage starts at 6 o'clock with Amina Smith, Brian Scalabrine, Chris Mannix, Abby Chin, and Chris Forsberg. Celtics playoff coverage is brought to you by Arbella Insurance and your New England Ford dealers. Then stick with us at 7 o'clock. Mike Gorman and Scal have the call of the game as the Celtics look to take a 2-0 lead over the Nets before the series shifts to Brooklyn. It's time for the Mega Hot Take. What do you got, Meg?
Well, Patriots players began off-season workouts in Foxborough this week, and tight end Jonnu Smith is a notable attendee after sitting out last year's OTAs. He was waiting on the birth of his daughter, a noble reason, but then he got injured in minicamp. So this double-down focus on literally getting with the program signals that Smith knows that in his second year with the Patriots, he has got to pop. And the program in Foxborough demands year-round work. A repeat of Smith's 28 catches and 2 touchdowns last year will not justify his $15 million in guaranteed cash next season. And playing just 51% of snaps won't do much in the way of helping Mac Jones's production in his second year either. I've heard summer bodies are made in March. Well, Patriots players are made between April and August.
I like that, and you are 100% correct. When you stack up those 2 tight ends that the Patriots brought in last offseason, one was there for everything and was able to be available for everything. One wasn't. The guy who was there ended up having a pretty good season in Hunter Henry.
It's just not easy to jump in and pick it up. Even if you get to minicamp and then you're injured, many guys can't just come in and make it work in camp. But one guy who's back, Malcolm Butler, we heard from, I think just yesterday, wasn't it? And
it was.
He is keeping his mouth zipped.
No, I ain't got too much to say about that, man. I'm living in the past. I'm trying to live in the present. You can't think about the past all the time. So, I move forward from that. I know it'll always be there, but I haven't said anything to anybody about anything. So man, you're going to have to keep doing your research or whatever you got to do, because I'm here for the Patriots and I'm here to be peaceful.
Time now for quick fire. And of course, what Malcolm Butler was talking about in that clip was his benching in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. And so we start with keeping his secret. He will not spill the tea. I'm not surprised, because why would he do it when he's back here and working under Bill Belichick once again? Are you surprised at all, Phil? And do you have any new theories about what happened back in the day?
No new theories, Meg, but I found it interesting talking to him yesterday that he was as surprised as apparently he was that the Patriots reached back out. He said this is why you don't burn your bridges. He's able to come out of retirement, get back into the league, play the game he loves with the team it all started with, because he was somehow, I don't understand it, but he somehow was able to keep his mouth shut on that entire situation, and now he's got a chance to revive his career.
This is truly becoming a New England mystery, like in the scale of the Gardner Museum heist. I don't think we are ever going to know at this point, especially if things go very well for him in his second stance here. Let's move on to succession. All right, after listening to Matt Groh last week, we have to wonder, is Matt Patricia really going to be the heir apparent when Bill Belichick eventually departs?
Well, number one, it's not necessarily going to be Bill Belichick's call, right? The team is owned by the Krafts. The Krafts are going to be able to make this decision, probably the most important decision that they will make in, I don't know, 5-10 years, is who ends up taking over for Bill Belichick whenever that happens. But if he's got his hands, if Matt Patricia has his hands in every little thing that goes on with the Patriots organization, to a lesser extent, but in a similar way to Bill Belichick, then does that not make him a logical choice for the Krafts? Maybe that's what Bill Belichick is trying to do, just trying to help out his buddy's resume. We know how much he respects Matt Patricia, and maybe it does eventually lead to a head gig.
Yes, Bill Belichick very recently said he has a very broad role, and it seems like Bill Belichick is the one who's putting him in that broad role. Let's move on to our Hall of a Class.
Hall of a Class.
Hall of a Class.
Hall, yeah.
The Patriots Hall of Fame finalists are announced. Wilfork, Vrabel, and Minkins are the finalists. Who you got here? Who would you like to see inducted as the 32nd person to join this hall?
Meg, it's starting to get tough. It's starting to get really, really hard. Every single year, the list of eligible candidates only grows. And so now you have
more impressive.
Three guys that need to get on. Vince Wilfork, I think, will end up being the vote. I would vote for Mike Vrabel because the wait's been so long and he needs to get in. And if he doesn't get in this year, it might be a while, Meg.
I would absolutely agree with you on Mike Vrabel. That is a type of player who I think Bill Belichick loved, and I don't think that we will see many of again. As much as Vince Wilfork is the fan favorite, I am here for Vrabel, and I have put my stake in the ground.
Wow, and that should help his candidacy, Meg. You heard it here first.
Play this clip.
Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Tom Curran will be back next week. Stick around for Early Edition.